Welcome back
Yeah.
to I Lost My Faith, and all I got was this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My name is George.
Hi, George.
Hi.
My name is Micah Herrera. I am an anti-theist, atheist, slowly becoming more radicalized against the American Christian Church. What about you?
I am a licensed therapist, ex-Mormon.
Yes.
Here to process that, do all that good stuff.
Well, that's right. And we are here to talk about our religious experiences, put them on the table, open them up, turn them out, see what's going on. And to your point, this is not official professional therapy. So please, if you need help, go get help. There's lots of professionals out there that are ready to talk to you and help. Because I know I need help. I need help, George.
I need help after the documentary you put me through.
Oh,
right?
my God. Okay. All right.
So
Let's get into
right
it.
in.
Let's get into it. We're starting today. I sent George the Jesus Camp documentary, which is a famous documentary that came out.
I had not heard of it prior.
In the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2006, I saw.
Yeah. Okay, well, so if you haven't seen it, it follows this Missouri Christian church and Christian leader who also does church camps and does kids ministry, children's ministry.
And the camp is in like North Dakota or something. Is that wrong?
I don't know. I think the church is in Missouri, but they might do the camp in North Dakota. I'm not sure. Okay. You may be right about that. I just remember seeing Missouri, but.
Definitely some Missouri.
Yes, but it is. This group is fully has an agenda to indoctrinate children, to radicalize children in a political way. A lot along the lines of this Christian nationalism that I've been reading about, that we've been talking about. Now, yeah. So it's pretty intense. So tell me. Go ahead.
You texted me. What would that have been? Where were we at? Friday or Saturday? You texted me Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
And without context, just like a message like, I don't understand this. Like, how could people do this?
Right.
Why was I, those questions. And
I was wrestling with the fact that I have seen that in in my youth.
And I did not understand what you were like kind of grappling with. So I sent a message back. I'm like, man, we were kids. It's kind of like, not trying to be dismissive for sure, but like just like reassuring. Like we were kids, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I dropped something about like being Mormon. I think like the multi-generational piece allows me to be like, my parents like went through their whole program, everything. So, but then I watched the documentary. And I was like, okay, I see where he was. I did not understand because it was jarring. Because I think I heard your story, right? I heard your background. I also was not like shocked is too strong a word, but like enlightened by like what you described. I didn't anticipate it, didn't understand fully what being in the evangelical church what it meant, how it worked. And then I've also been aware of all the things we've been talking about, right? Of like the Christian right and the overtaking the Republican Party and the focus and I guess established plan to get judges and all that. I've been like very aware of that.
Yeah.
But watching this documentary and seeing like the fundamentalist cult fervor that is feeding that, like I said earlier, it clued me in a lot more to like some of the way you've been communicating that I've been unaware of. And I was left pretty speechless after the documentary. So,
well, I think it made me more speechless now because now those people are in the White House.
Oh yeah. I mean, even in 2006, they had the pastor at one point in the documentary who was a very uncharming gentleman making very weird jokes. To the camera. Ted Haggard. Ted Haggard.
Yes.
He was meeting with George Bush every Monday.
Yes, he was George Bush's pastor.
And
you know what happened with that pastor, right?
No,
told
I
you
don't
what
know
happened.
anything.
Oh yeah, he got caught in a scandal. He would basically had a male prostitute that was giving him massages and selling him methamphetamine and having sex with him, and he got caught. That pastor, Ted Haggard.
I mean, he was a freak. The way he talked to that child pastor.
He was a terrible person.
The kid that was like wanting to be a pastor. There's preaching. Levi. He said, once your cute stick, kid stick wears off, you have to be good at content. And I was like, the fuck? Why are you like threatened by this child? It was
how can you
insane.
And how can a whole church of people not see through that type of person?
And how could the president of the United States not see through that person?
How can the president of the United States not see through that person? Anyway, it's insane.
So So I was floored. I feel like I have a new understanding of your experience, because I know you mentioned that that's just 1 or 2 degrees removed from what you experienced.
It's
but
not far.
Yeah,
well,
but you saw
Ted Haggard's church, New Life Church, was one of the ones that I looked up to.
And it was in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, it was in Colorado Springs, but we knew about it. Mm-hmm. My church knew about it. I knew about. I didn't really know Ted Haggard's preaching. I knew their music
as like a figure,
right. But I knew he was a big figure. He was a well-respected figure. Obviously, George Bush. Like I said, now Paula White is Trump's pastor, and you should see the stuff that she's done.
It's the same.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insanity. It's absolute insanity.
Yeah.
And
so like you were saying, like maybe talk through for sure. If you have not seen this documentary, check it out. It's currently streaming on Hulu. I don't know if that'll hold,
Hulu and Amazon Prime.
Yeah, check it out.
Not that we support those companies or whatever,
no,
whatever, but it's just you can find it. You can find it. There you go.
We are not sponsored.
We are not
by
sponsored.
Hulu or Mr. Bezos. But yeah, so it runs through this woman. I can't remember her name. Do you remember the child pastor that's kind of focused around Patty?
Kathy. I think it might have been Kathy or Patty. Yeah. I can't remember, but yeah.
And she is wild.
She's wild. She's a typical children's minister in that, she knows how to talk to kids. And I can't I don't want to make assumptions about who she is as a person.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
we can speak more broadly about the impact we see.
But she is definitely there to radicalize children. You
can't argue that. She wouldn't argue that.
No. Okay. That's the thing with that documentary. They did no narration.
No. They let them
and
say
when they
it.
talked to her afterwards, she was like, yeah, I mean, a few things I felt could have been cut a little differently, but overall they were pretty satisfied with that documentary.
Yeah.
Her ministry was pretty satisfied with it. Like, this is our message.
And I was so jarred because it comes in, one of the first things that jarred me, it shows like a homeschooled family.
Yes.
And mom, just straightforward, like teaching global warming out of her children. Just like, there's no way we can like believe global warming. Like, that's step one.
Yeah.
They do the Christian Pledge of Allegiance, which I was not aware of. Like, it's part of their.
Oh yeah,
routine.
I can't believe you've never done the Christian Pledge of Allegiance.
No,
and
this is the thing.
We did that one in church.
Yeah,
we've done that one in church. Yeah.
So wild. I mean, like, Mormonism has these ideas. Like, Joseph Smith ran for president like 3 times, and
didn't he get assassinated when he was running for president?
He got assassinated because he destroyed a printing press that was printing stories about him being a polygamist.
Which
I was never told.
Okay.
But is the facts of the matter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it had anything. I mean, maybe they ran that because he was running for president, and it was like, don't vote for this guy. He's a polygamist. We don't need a polygamist president that's going to oppress women.
Maybe it was while he was running for president.
Yeah, it may have been around. I'm not sure. But there is like there is a whole idea. I don't know where this is founded or like if this is where it is, but there's this whole idea of like there being a third party that will rise up to like allow like religious people to retake America. Like that is like an idea like within Mormonism, but it's a lot more in the background. It's quiet. And that was so like was so shocking about this is like they're saying the quiet part out loud. And so
but it's that thing, it's that like what I told you, it's like that whole putting it on a child that they're supposed to go and fix the government is insane.
Well, no, for me, like where I really dipped over. So my jaw's on the floor with the global warming, like all this stuff's building.
Yeah, the evolution, that stuff, that was funny.
Oh, all this is going, but, like, would you call it? Yeah.
The Earth is 6,000 years old.
Yeah. And then she starts talking about her philosophy.
Yeah.
And she describes like Islamic, like
how they radicalize
child armies. They're putting grenades into the hands of children, which I think is like rampant Islamophobia that was going on there. Of course, that I'm pro-Islam, right? But that's definitely in there. But
there have been child soldiers around the world, but it's been definitely sensationalized, for sure.
But her reaction to that is not that is wrong.
Yeah,
we need to do that to our kids.
Thing to
and
our
she
kids.
says that.
Yeah,
she says they're putting hands in the grenades of children.
Yeah.
And then next sentence is we need to do the same.
Yeah.
She doesn't blink.
Nope.
She doesn't try to re-describe that. She says it out loud.
Nope.
And that is I was floored because that for me just gave me a whole new understanding of this, like these ideas, like I said, of the Christian right and what's been happening in this country, and the fact that there is a fundamentalist cult at the core of it, like the frontline soldiers of it. Like I think people in Mormonism are behind what's happening, but they're not those frontline soldiers. I see like the majority of Mormons, and I was just shocked.
Yeah, it is absolutely shocking. And that is one sect of it for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think the main thing that bothers me is that the child indoctrination of the church is so appalling, and a lot of people make excuses for it. A lot of people think, oh, it's great. You're supposed to put your kid in Sunday school and have them indoctrinated in your religion, and send them to summer camp and have them indoctrinated for a week by guest speakers and things like that. And let them tell your kids what to think. And I don't know, like that to me is the most one of the most appalling parts of a religion, is to funnel your kids through that system and to radicalize them.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, because I went to summer camp and it was not far from that.
Really?
It was not far at all from that. Maybe the speakers were a little more eloquent, but the ideas and the radicalization were the exact same.
Yeah.
We were in services where youths or children, one of the two, it depends. Some there's children's camp, summer camp, and youth summer camp. And the children would be speaking in tongues and prophesying and
hands up,
speaking
like
messages,
bawling,
that chanting these things that they're told to chant about saving the nation, about ending abortion, about whatever it is.
Public confession as well, because that was something that happened.
Yes,
in
that. Absolutely.
They all got in front of the mic, and there's this little like 10-year-old boy that's down on the floor talking about how he doesn't have the strength to believe in God, and I'm
still trying to process all of it. That's why I sent you those texts, because I was like, I'm so emotionally distraught, because it brought me right back to my childhood of being raised in that. And I mean, I try to talk to my friends about it now, and that have been through that with me. Okay. And sometimes, yes, we all know it was crazy, but I think we try to get away from it so much that we forget how insane it was.
Okay.
And we try to just like, because there's an embarrassment factor that comes from it. There's a shame factor. There's a, like, I was caught up, and you helped me there. You did help me. You're like, we were kids. Uh-huh. I even talked to someone today. There's this guy, he does the Atheist Experience on YouTube, and he's a famous atheist speaker guy, and I called into a show today.
Really?
Just to talk to him a little bit about, because he was talking about Christian nationalism stuff, and I was like, I was like, hey, can you help me understand this better? Because he was in that too. He's from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Very similar type of fervor and things, and he said, my my Christian private school, we wore red, white, and blue uniforms and had an American flag on the ties, and we had to say the Christian pledge, and we were being radicalized every which way. It was all kinds of things that were happening that it was just normal for us to be radicalized in that way. That it was as children, that you were going to be the army for God and you were going to go and save all your friends and make this nation a Christian nation and take it back for God.
Yeah.
It's so insane. You just think like, I was in a cult. It is a cult. Christianity, American Christianity is a cult that indoctrinates children, that does not teach them how to have a learning and open mind to experience, but to tell them, this is the truth. Let me tell you, just keep saying the truth, and you say it to everyone around you. And I'm going to tell you what the truth is. This is it. And God is the only way. And you're going to go and take on this big responsibility of saving the world.
Right. Yeah. And that was another part of in the documentary that she said out loud. It was the idea that like she's focused on children because they're so susceptible.
Because they're so susceptible.
She said it. Because they're these empty vessels, because they're malleable.
Yeah.
I'm reading this book right now. It's like a neuroscience thing about like, it's called How the Brain Heals Itself, I think.
Okay.
And one part of it just like reminded me of this because I'm reading it the last couple of days, but the guy that this chapter was talking about talks about like humans as animals having like the longest like apprenticeship period, right? Mm-hmm. Because we externalize so much of like our development. Like we don't have as much like reflexive.
Right. We're born with a few things in our brain.
Right, but we're malleable because we are a species that has expanded the entire globe. We have to be able to develop in our environment to be able to respond to it, right?
Yes.
And that is exactly what is being exploited by religion, right? Is this that just like malleability, and that does like go back to like what I was saying about like the way I view, and I always try to I know that I like minimize my own experience, and I don't want to like minimize other people's experience because of it, right? And I don't mean to do that, but I do like for my kind of perspective on it, like when I think of my parents, like people who did put that on me as a child, I know that they were stuck in the same, like that same thing happened to them, right? And so that changes how I hold it in my brain. It's not, it doesn't excuse it, but definitely is more like what comes to my mind, which is also just makes me like some generational sadness more than
definitely some sadness. I mean, we're all humans.
Absolutely.
And I get that. And parents are humans, and parents are flawed humans. And so I get that, and I understand that. There's just a better way. We don't have to do that. We don't have to indoctrinate children that way.
Yeah.
We don't have to. It's not helping. It's obviously not helping. I think people are realizing, oh no, we actually have to help our kids learn and learn how to learn. But parents were not taught. Mm-hmm. Not the church's responsibility to teach kids how to learn, but it's also very sinister and manipulative for the church to indoctrinate children.
Right.
And to teach them not to learn.
Yes.
To teach them to close themselves off to other ideas.
Yes.
And scare them with hell, and scare them with the nation is going to go to hell, and and you have to save this nation, so you have to, it's so important. And and if, go ahead.
If religion works, it should work based on its merits alone,
right?
Not on tactics utilized to engender fear and like enthusiasm or radicalism, right? Which is what's happening, right? It's not being taught in just like, like if you like have faith in Jesus, you take care of other people, you do those things,
right?
I mean, maybe to varying levels in different religions, maybe you could say that it's taught more that way, but in fundamentalist religions, it's not in any way, right? Not. It's taught in because it's built in these perspectives that have to ingrain it in you
Yes.
before you're ever tested, right? When Haley and I were even just talking about being asked if you'd be willing to die for your faith, like before you're 10 years old. Like,
Isn't that insane?
what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, I should not, what do you mean? I should not be thinking about dying
Yes.
for a faith. Like, would you deny like Peter? It's like, probably. I don't want to die. Duh. What do you mean?
But I remember hearing this.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember, yes, I heard all kinds of things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember hearing, it told me, well, if you don't get them by the time they're 14 or 17, then the likelihood that they'll become a Christian drops significantly. That was a stat that was given out. So in defense of, we need to get kids in church and to be indoctrinated,
Right.
while they're young. That's the way. And pastors will tell that to their parents. To the parents, they'll say, if you want your kid to go to heaven, you got to get them here in church, because if you don't, then they're going to end up going to hell and be sinners and not believe. Mm-hmm. And then that's how they get that. They this fear that your child is going to end up going to hell.
Yeah. I think the stat that it had in the documentary, if I remember, it was something like 43% of evangelicals were born again before they were 13.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's
it has
a majority.
To be. Yeah.
Or I guess that's not a majority.
But that is a cult manipulation tactic, right? Mm-hmm. Get the malleable, moldable children and mold them into your little soldier, so that when they're grown up, they won't know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. Which is one of those things I had to go through. I had to figure out how to get out.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Yeah.
I mean,
all the indoctrination pops up and
yeah. No, okay, so
yeah.
Let's go back to our experiences, because I
Sure.
think I can yell about this all day.
Yeah.
And
I'm getting fiery. Yeah.
I can really yell about how disgusting I think the child indoctrination is.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what we want to talk a bit more about this episode.
Right.
In addition to that documentary, which is ultimately what it's about, is how that is such a large focus of these groups.
Well, let me ask you, because so when you were a child, because we texted about this a little bit, you were saying that the idea of proselytizing was given to you at a young age, even, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that? What were you being told?
Yeah. So,
or what were you feeling? What was the?
I think since because you brought this point up when we were texting, right? Of how much proselyting am I going to be doing in suburban Utah, right? With everyone being Mormon,
right? Yeah.
So I think now that you're asking it again, what comes to my mind is so much of that kind of energy was put towards me, serving a mission. Right. And so I was encouraged.
The anticipation.
Yes. There was a lot of building to that moment. And it was so much, they've eased the language from what I understand.
Okay.
But there used to be so much pressure put on, especially men, serving missions. And so that's more of where it went. So it wasn't necessarily me, because I know in that documentary, it shows a little girl going up to somebody at a bowling alley, letting her, going up to some guys in the park. You did that? Yeah. I want to hear. Will you share?
Go ahead.
I don't. Of course, we were always told to be an example to our friends and invite people to activities.
People, yeah.
But it was just so Mormon everywhere that it was. I think a lot of it.
There weren't a lot of opportunities,
and a lot of the message was put towards bringing less active people back too.
That
was a big thing. Bringing back the lost. Jesus leaves the 99 to go get the one. That was a lot of the messaging.
Prodigal son.
But definitely a lot of preparation for the mission.
Yeah,
was what it was.
Okay, and I'm so curious what that was like building up as a kid. Did you all have stories like, oh, I heard that a mission during your mission this happens and that happens, and oh man, like at the sleepovers, were y'all talking about the missions like it was some like ghost story thing?
Yeah, I mean, they like a Mormon phrase is like it's the best 2 years of your life.
Oh yeah.
There's like a Mormon like produced movie called The Best 2 Years. It's just like Jesus. About like missionaries and stuff. And so that was like the messaging. It's like, man, I can't wait to go on a mission and be able
it's gonna be so good
to preach the word. And then I got out there and I avoided it. Like, all I could. I'd give like people. I was just telling Haley like the story when I came home when I flew home from my mission. I sat by some girl. She was very nice to me on the mission or on the airplane, and we were like, I don't even remember what we talked about. We talked just like casually, and then as I left, I was just like, hey, can I give you this? It was just like a card with like the church's website on it. I was like, if you want to check it out, just a message about Christmas, because it was in December.
Oh no.
So I did that, but that's more how I would do it. Like I wouldn't. Like,
you just kind of slide.
Because I always felt kind of weird about it. But I mean, that was what I was supposed to do, right? That was a good Mormon, like getting the message out.
I will say I used that bowling alley technique that you see in the video where she goes up to that girl.
Yes, because she's like, I like God. I can't remember exactly how she says, but like I know like God really like wants you, or like I feel that God really wants you, or something like that.
Yeah, no, those exact words.
Okay,
were words that anyone would be told to use. God has a plan for your life. God wants you to wants to use you and bless you, and just want you to know that God has a word for you, that He's thinking about you and He loves you.
Yeah.
So yes, I felt those things. I actually used that to riz up my first boyfriend. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were 13. That's how we became best friends.
It's because but that was at like a camp,
went up to him at church. I went to him at church camp,
yeah.
and I basically I was like I got into his, and I said, God was telling me to tell you something, and then that's how I started talking to him, and then I did that, and it was like I don't need to reiterate what it was. It was whatever. It was good. I did it. I did the thing.
You used the language you were given.
I used the language.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of saw that in this girl, because I can tell that this girl thought that the one that she was ministering to was a really pretty girl. I think she was looking up to her and like wanted to talk to her.
Yeah, I get that.
And I think that's like it's so funny to see the psychology of the child,
because then you interpret that as the spirit, right?
Right.
It's just
she
like,
thinks
this is
it's
somebody
the
I'm
spirit
attracted
telling her.
to.
Yeah, she was just attracted to her beauty and what she was presenting, and possibly wanted to talk to her, and just kind of like be in her presence. And she's in, that was the Holy Spirit telling me to go minister to this, but the Holy Spirit was telling me to go minister to him, and I did.
Telling you something.
And then I started talking to his group, and I got him to laugh, and I was in. That was it. That's all it took. Praise Jesus.
Honestly, this makes me so much sadder now after watching those kids. The way they're just like bawling, red face.
Yeah,
like,
the worship
in
stuff.
this fervor.
Yeah, because then we went in. Then we went into a service, and it's 2 hours of that. It's 2 hours of. I mean, and you'd see kids bawling, crying out, speaking in tongues, speaking in tongues. Yeah,
which is still like, I know we talked about it too. Which is still, I think, some. I mean, it's wild to see.
Yeah.
Any context, but I do think it's still some ingrained Mormon superiority in me too.
As what?
As like, that's so weird. Anyway, so the weird. Angel Moroni, right?
Oh,
like,
no.
That's exactly like the whole thing is like speaking in tongues. Even when I was Mormon, we would scoff at that and be like, "Oh, those loony people," and then we would do our loony things. Yes. But it was like a way, and so I still have it.
Oh no! Sure. We would too. We'd be like, "Oh yeah, those ones are a little too crazy. Yeah. That one's just a little too flying off the handle." Yeah. Anyways, let me speak in tongues. Yes. They all do it. It's the no true Scotsman fallacy, right?
Yeah,
it's the whole like they're not the real Christians. They're wacky. We're the real ones. But I think what did it with Jesus Camp is it was such a reflection of so much of the evangelical church. Even the ones that try to say we're not wacky like that, though some people do some crazy stuff. It is a full-on reflection of what they're doing. Either way, any way you spin it, you can't spin away all of that. It's maybe it wasn't. Maybe the speakers are a little more eloquent. Maybe you're not doing such silly stuff, but it's still there. It's still the same thing. It's just packaged a little more neatly. It's just not like you said, Mormons just don't say it out loud. Yeah, right? It's just packaged in a nice little package.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I think we were talking a little bit before that same girl that goes up in the bowling alley has a little spiel about dead worship or dead churches.
Yeah,
she calls it.
What she says,
right, which is very Mormon. Like Mormon would fit into that. She's like this whole idea that you just like sit and like sing really solemn songs. And I think Mormonism uses solemnity like in the same way they use like fervor.
Yeah.
Right. So even like joy is very subdued, and I think that it's just like a different flavor of the same thing. Like I was thinking through my own experiences because it isn't that, right? I wasn't at like church camps that we would go into like a 2-hour service and they like get us into a fervor. Like that wouldn't happen, but we would go on a, it's called Trek. And it was it was a pioneer cosplay for a few days.
Yes, that's
the whole
right.
first day we like walked 12 miles and all they gave us was broth and a roll. It's supposed to be like an object lesson, but a little bit like Jonestown-y.
Let's starve them a little bit so that they'll be really radical. Yeah.
Right. And then like doing just like various activities, like one where we have to like pretend all the men are injured and like watch the women like pull because we're like pulling hand carts like with all of our stuff. We're really doing the thing. And the men just have to like stand and watch the women like pull a cart across the ravine.
See, we would be like, y'all are so weird and kooky.
But I think so the whole idea is like you watch like the women suffer and like it's purposefully a very hard part where they have to like pull the cart over like a ravine.
Oh my God.
And they make the men like stand and watch, right? And so I think it's a little bit, just like I said, a different flavor of like this emotional reaction. And then like another time we had to like pretend that like part of, because you're separated into like families with like other members, and you have to pretend at a certain point that a member died of your family, and like you have a fake funeral, and it's this whole just like emotional manipulation thing that's supposed to just like, and I didn't get it. I was 15 when I did it. So I was like, and like I had a crush on a girl that was there. Like, I was just trying everything I could to get away from my family all day so I could go hang out with her. It was just like a whole thing. And then after, so I mean, this is a little sidebar. Afterward, a girl in my ward got up and like was crying. I think I may have already told this story, but she's like crying and like telling her story. And like, I turned to my sister. I'm like, why is she crying? I like do not understand. And my sister, I was like, did somebody force her to talk about that experience? And my sister's like, no, she's feeling the spirit. And I was like,
what spirit? Yeah.
What?
From
that?
What?
but I feel like that is like the Mormon version, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And this kind of takes me to one of the topics that we wanted to talk about, which is this type of like radicalization camps. Right. Or events.
Yeah, I want to hear more about your camp
because summer camp is the area where we do, this would be our pioneer trek place, right? Summer camp is designed where they have different methods for it, but it's just it's meant to, by the end of the week, you're so sleep deprived. And you've been hearing this message over and over and over and over, and it's being put into your head over and over and over. And you have these long nights of music and worship. And as a kid, you're so exhausted. And this is a cult tactic, is sleep deprivation, because it makes you emotionally vulnerable. It makes you emotionally susceptible to programming. And it just... by the end of the week, people are just having emotional breakdowns. They're seeing God. They're having experiences with God. It's meant to put you in a radicalizing situation, and then hammer these messages home. what they do is so they'll like, we would go to these summer camps. There was this one, it was called Discovery Camp, and it was an evangelical radicalization indoctrination.
Where was it? Is it in Texas?
Like it was near Houston. Yeah, so we'd have to drive down there for that one. And they start you out. They have, like I said, long services. So after every meal, you go into a service. And, you would sing worship songs. They introduce these worship songs. You're going to be singing those songs all week, right? And they're all about, I'm going to be a soldier for Christ. I'm going to live for Christ. I am going to save everybody I know, all those things. And I worship you, Jesus. I give you everything. I am a sinner and you saved me, and all that stuff. And these services, you have people, they're going up to the front. Of course, it's rock and roll worship too. So everybody's jumping up and down and screaming and shouting the chorus. And then it goes into the slow songs. And then everybody's all like rocking back and forth. And they've got their hands up and they're singing and they're crying. And it's full emotional manipulation. And these kids, they don't know how to deal with that. They're just, fully... And then it's being encouraged by the pastors that are there. They come up on stage and they might pick out a kid that's just bawling and boohooing and be like, what's going on? And they're like, I just feel God. I feel the presence of God. And God's telling me that whatever silly thing is on their mind. Because it's always silly. It's always some silly thing or some repeat of what they're hearing adults say that they're supposed to be saying.
Yeah.
And, and it's that form of like testimony that is reinforced there.
That's in the documentary, not to derail, like there's that, to me, I'm hearing like the abortion thing, right? They have the whole abortion object lesson, and then they hand the mic to the most distraught little girl that starts regurgitating things that she's obviously heard other people say about in this fight for life and all these things. I'm like, she's 7.
Yeah.
She's 7.
She doesn't know.
She's 7.
Yeah.
Like,
she's just mimicking
whatever you believe about those things, like that, you have to know it's inappropriate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, like, but people in the church are taught this is God speaking through a child out of the mouths of babes.
They're so close to the veil.
Yes. Well, that's the way this woman in this documentary portrays it. She says, "Oh, they're just so open that they can just hear God's voice."
Yes. Yep.
When no, they're just so able to be molded.
Yeah, they're getting positive feedback from adults that are treating them.
Wouldn't you love that? Yeah. Wouldn't you love that? And and the ones that want to be leaders and have attention, they go up there and try and preach and lead other youths. It's a whole Lord of the Flies, hierarchy situation going on. Anyways, and so they have you in these services, then they send you outside and you play in the sun all day, play on the water slides, and that stuff's pretty fun, play volleyball, whatever. You come back, eat another meal, go to another service, right? And then the night service after you're exhausted all day, everybody's exhausted. That's when they hit you hard with the emotional stuff. And they, like I said, it's another worship service, another speaking in tongues, people falling out in the spirit. These are youths and children that they're being taught to mimic falling out in the spirit, and they're shaking on the ground with the Holy Spirit inside of them, that sort of thing. I mean, what would you have thought if you saw that as a Mormon?
As a Mormon?
Yeah. As a Mormon, what would you have thought? I
would have thought that they were insane.
That they were insane? Okay.
For sure.
And what do you think now? They're insane. But these kids are just, it's an emotional fervor that they're learning to give into. And then
I would have said how sad.
How sad.
That would have been,
yeah. How sad that they're so deceived.
It would have been paternal, yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been like, how sad. They just don't have the full truth.
They just don't have the full truth.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. They don't know the right way to worship Jesus.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like this. And we sing very, very sweetly. That is the way Jesus. That's like the Mormon family portrait.
For sure. Soft smile. Dead smile.
Dead smile. Dead behind the eyes. Just completely dead behind the eyes.
I am an empty vessel for God. It's sad but true, yeah.
Yeah, and then the pastor will get up there and speak a message, and it'll all be about radicalizing, and you're going to go back to your schools and you're going to save everyone in your school, and your school's going to have a revival, and and Jesus is going to be there in every classroom, and people are going to just be breaking out in tongues and worshiping. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I even started a prayer group in my school for that reason, was trying to get this like revival to happen in my school. I thought, oh yeah, hundreds of kids are going to end up in these classroom, before school, and we're all going to be praying, and it's going to be this big, huge revival that's going to happen. Everyone in the school is going to get saved, and everyone's going to come. It was so stupid.
Is that part of like the embarrassment?
Yes.
Like that?
Yes,
is that you
definitely.
You followed through with it,
I believed it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yes, it is embarrassing. I have... Okay. All right. I'll finish what I'm going to say about the summer camp, and then I'm going to talk about how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But but yeah. And then like I said, by the end of the week, you're just... everybody's just completely emotionally spent, and you had these encounters with God, and you've cried and whatever, shouted, all the things. You don't have a voice anymore. Anyways, and they're always like, yeah, you're going to go home and you're going to radicalize it. And then a week later, once you get home and you've had some sleep and you've had some proper food, not cafeteria prison food, you're like, oh, okay, everything's cool. Everything's chill. This really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Is what you start thinking. But then the youth pastor's job is to go and guilt you.
Keep you in that.
Yeah, be like, oh, you remember how on fire you were? That's the way you got to be all the time. If you're not really on fire for Jesus. We're going to keep that fire going. And, while it's subsiding for people, and they're like, yeah, okay, and it goes away. Yeah. So... Anyways, that every summer.
Really?
Yeah. We'd go to that.
From the time you're like 12, 13?
Yeah, but I lapped it up. I liked it because like I've said, I needed that. I needed that like emotional intensity and emotional release and emotional and the acceptance and everything. So yeah.
Right.
But okay, what were your camp experiences like?
So
you had the pioneer thing.
Yeah, so I did that once when I was like 15. Most of the other camps would have been like Boy Scouts, so it was a little different.
Okay. It was like Boy Scouts. Yeah, Mormon Boy Scouts.
No, I thought everyone was Mormon, and then I remember like we were walking and somebody mentioned being Catholic at like a big like
Catholic. I was gonna say because Catholic.
We're not all Mormon. Truly, I was like,
what do you mean?
They're non-Mormon people.
There's a sinner here. There's somebody going to hell.
Right. A hell guy. So there's those, and then we did have so I did that. Trek would happen like every 4 years. You'd go once, right? It was like the Olympics.
From like how.
It's Trek, baby.
Oh, so like you would go once, like within these 4 years, and it would happen one of these 4 years.
Pretty much, like some people will, because you could go from the time you're 14 through to like 18.
Yeah,
right? So some people would go twice if they fell in the right year. Mine happened when I was 15, so I didn't have to. Luckily, I didn't have to do it.
Would you have done it twice?
I was more resistant by the time I was like 17, so probably not. Especially if I had already
when you were younger, were you like, I get to go on Trek? That's gonna be so much fun.
I had a crush on that girl, and so that's why I was like, I get like 4 days, kind of like trying to flirt with her.
Yeah, all right,
sure,
all right. You threw that riz down. Yeah. So that's why I went to summer camp, and I was like, I knew who was gonna be there.
Right.
He was gonna be there. I was gonna riz him up.
All right.
And the little 13-year-old. I try and get in the head of little 13-year-old Micah, and I'm like, how did he do that? How did he know? He just went for it. He just did it.
Yeah. I think to speak to the embarrassment, I know we're going to maybe talk about that
more. Yeah.
I do think like for me, the things like you describe of like taking it back to your school and doing the thing and like really believing, I think just like speaks a lot to like you as a person being like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%. Right. And I think like that,
but why did it have to be that?
I know.
Why did it have to be that, George?
Because you were a kid and they are very like aware of children's needs and they expose it. You know what I mean? But I think like for me, when I hear your story, that's what stands out to me is like, like you were caught up in a environment that exploited like your openness or like your need for like emotional support, all those things. And then you're a person that's like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to commit to it. I'm going to get everything. I'm going to squeeze all I can out of it. Yeah, real. So that's what I hear from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, because I also just thought it was like, I thought it was supposed to be powerful. I was told it was really powerful. It was magic. It was magic in real magic.
Right.
So I was like, well, if it's real, well then let's get it going.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Right.
Sprinkle that fairy dust. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That speaks to integrity to me.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, George. Thanks for making me feel a little better about that. Cause
I think it's important.
I know. I told you in my story, there were moments where I was like, oh, some people do cringe at what I'm doing. So like the prayer before school, there were some people that were like
that you like started tuning into people.
Yeah, they were cringing at how radical I was.
Yeah. When
I led that worship service for my senior year, and it was just the type of songs that we were singing and the way I was delivering them. They were like, "Whoa, this is not like Baptist church. This is like radical weird shit," and. Yeah. And it wasn't even that, radical, but it was just the way I was doing it. I was worshiping. I was, and they were like, oh, what is this? You think God's real? Like,
right.
Cringy. That's the other thing. It gets me because it is so. I know you're against this word, but I don't know what other word to use. But stupid. It's stupid. I'm not saying the people are stupid, but the Christian religion is stupid.
Yeah.
Fight me. Fight me on that. It's stupid.
I think that the connections it tries to make are stupid.
Yeah.
Like you said, because we were having the conversation of, are these people stupid that are falling into this?
No.
And I don't think that at all. I think that
because then I'd have to be stupid.
Then I'd have to be stupid for sure. That's part of this. 100%. I'd have to be stupid.
And I can't accept that.
Yeah, I cannot simply. But like going back to everything we've said about tactics, about the self-perpetuating nature, the indoctrination of children, like you're just in that. Like you're taught to not look at this, even if you are a very intellectual person that does foster that part of yourself. You are taught to separate that from the way you view your religion, right? So you can do that over here, but then once you get here, the same like application of thinking and like critical thinking is like snipped. Right. And so I don't think that makes you stupid. I think it makes you susceptible to these. And that happens to children. And then I think the reason that the church told me as a missionary to look for very vulnerable people is because they are in a state of identity crisis that allows that to come in and fill those spaces and act not in the same like hyper way that it happens with children, because children are like elastic, right? But still kind of fills it that same way. Right. So that's why I'm like, no, these people are not stupid. This Christianity is smart in the way that it perpetuates itself. Right. That's where it's smart.
It is. Right? It is. But it is. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like
I don't get. Here's what I don't get is the people that are trying to make it cool. I'm like, y'all, you cannot make this cool. It's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I can't. I don't know how it can be.
Yeah.
But because it's just so stupid. I don't know. I'm still trying to process it. I'm still trying to process like. I was a little upset because, I trusted the adults around me to help me, lead me in the right direction. And obviously that's not what happened. So, I mean, I know it's what they thought was the right direction.
Right.
But also using tactics that are not helpful or able to help someone grow.
Right.
Is the other thing. It is so stunting.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't need to go off on every tangent, but it is very stunting, the Christian religion and the Christian doctrine. It just keeps you very small, very regressed, very not able to think for yourself or trust yourself or have confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
There was a quote that I got recently. They talked to some of these kids 10 years later.
Oh, they did.
After the documentary, and I saw it online. And one of the kids, the one, if you see him, he's got the blonde chili bowl.
Yeah, he's the one that did like the public confession that I was talking about.
Yes, where he said it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
And all the other kids are like, what are you talking about? We all believe. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Like, it's not hard to believe, you know, but he's actually thinking for himself, being like, it's hard to believe because you can't hear him. You can't see Jesus or see God. There's no evidence. I'm like, yeah, preach the truth, kid. And he's trying so hard to feel it. He's like trying hard
he's
to
crying
feel it.
The whole
He's
trying.
But
He's
trying.
You can tell, he's beating himself up the whole time. Right?
Yeah.
But what did he say?
And he said, gosh, goodness, what did he say? He was just talking about how it is one that does not teach your mind to be open to growing and to learning, but closed off and indoctrinated. And there's a difference between indoctrination and teaching someone how to learn and be open. And just like what I've been saying, this is a very sinister way of teaching a child and how limiting it is.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he's thankful that he got to see what the Christian church offered and then take that into his experience and then grow and see that there's way more than that.
Yeah.
That there's so much more. I have to be thankful for that.
We ultimately have to, right? Our experience is our experience, and we're not going to have any other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a whole world ahead of us of experience,
but
absolutely. The experience we've had is the experience we've had, and I think the best we can do is process it, integrate it the best we can, leave behind the parts that don't serve us, and give ourselves the pieces that we weren't given, because I do think there's just a level of nurturing that children deserve and need that I think Christian religion obviously prioritizes children and like families, and that's a centerpiece of the doctrine.
Yeah.
But I do, like you're saying, the actual handling of child like psychology and development is cut off from some of the nurturance, or especially like the internal like self-worth piece. Right. Like I think that's what always sticks out to me. Yeah. Just like that, the doctrine I've called out multiple times.
Yeah.
Just
we can say
children
it. We can say it again.
Right. Children are like humans are fallen. They are natural. We have to overcome ourselves.
Right.
That all just ingrains in you an idea that you're not enough.
Right.
And that's going to stay with you the rest of your life. And sure, if you stay faithful, maybe you have an unhealthy reliance on a God that gives you that self-worth, but that's still outside of you.
Yeah.
And takes that away from you, and it should not be taken away from you. That should be completely yours. Your worth, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that is very sad. And that's what was so sad to see, like in that documentary, of just, the way these kids were manipulated and exploited.
I loved what Levi said. He said at 5 years old, I just felt like there was, I was bored with life. I was like, dude, at 5 years old.
So sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
That was another hit at the very beginning.
And there has to be more. Yeah, or the girl, she said, well, Levi said again, he said, I meet people who aren't Christians and I just get this sick feeling, this yucky feeling. Yeah. I'm like, dude, dude. Yeah, so sad. But I was told these same things.
Oh, yeah.
I would have, I kind of felt like Levi in ways that were reflections of myself because I wanted to be that.
You wanted to be the preacher.
I wanted to.
Would you do little sermons like he was doing?
Oh, I mean, I started preaching.
That's right.
Yeah, in my youth group as soon as I could. Yeah, and I was leading worship in my youth group at 13.
Could I ask you some of your favorite topics? You don't have to tell. Levi's
what did
was faith.
I like? Yeah, his was faith. Oh no, I don't want to talk.
Okay,
about
that's
those
fine.
things.
That's fine.
I really
we don't
don't.
have to.
I
Yeah,
hate it.
That's fine.
I hate it
we
so
don't have
much.
to.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of mimicry too.
Yeah, it is very. It seems very stream of conscious. Like you almost get into like a meditative state. You just like throw out one. You know, is that?
Well, you could see him when he was practicing his sermon. I really believe that we're the generation that's gonna.
Yeah.
That's all stuff he's just heard.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You get in this meditative state and just regurgitate and like
right.
string together.
He's just stringing together what he's heard someone else say, what he's supposed to say, what he knows is going to get a rise out of people, and those type of things. And it was great. And I would like, you know, especially in my early teen years, I would just, you know, great sermons, I would just kind of steal stuff that they would say and stuff like that, and then try and make my own. I have a journal. It's very embarrassing, where I wrote down revelations that I had from God in my own prayer states as a teenager. It's just,
hey, I've got the same thing.
I'm down for experimenting. Like I'm down for like my life. I love being a good scientist.
Yeah.
So the fact that I sought those for myself. Like I sought my own. I wanted my own revelations from God.
Yeah. I'm not just gonna.
I was gonna find them. I want my own connection with God. I want my own power of God to come through my hands. I want to see it. I want to see it for real. Although I've always been a good scientist in that way. But then also, you know, you also have all the evidence of the silliness. And it's there. I have it.
The things, the science you're conducting, like the sources you're pulling from, were just kind of loony, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You're trying the best you could.
I was trying.
I have the same like feelings about a lot of like the messaging I would do on my mission, like when I'd sit in front of people and teach them about like the word of wisdom, like those the law of chastity, and you know, teaching people who were living in sin the law of chastity, and like saying to their face that like the fact that they were living together and they were not married like meant they were they couldn't get baptized, so if they wanted to get baptized they'd have to get married. I planned the wedding of a couple so that they could get baptized
on your mission?
On my mission with Haley's family, actually.
Nice.
So yeah, it's I definitely have a lot of like cringe like looking back.
Yeah.
But it was 100, like you're saying, it was 200% me regurgitating.
Yeah.
Right? Like just trying to say the things that I was told worked.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Oh God, I remember it was making me feel so much. Goodness.
Yeah.
Pastors do it too. Senior pastors, mega churches. You can take a message that a senior pastor in a mega church delivers, and you can find 5 other mimics of it, or find where that senior pastor got their message from, you know, and then it's like, everybody does it. I think they have to do it in ministry just because it's so hard to preach about something that there's no substance there. Mm-hmm. There's really no substance. So you just kind of have to like find whatever charlatan was able to come up with a good.
What else are you going to say at this point?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm 100% like. What else you guys got to say?
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep.
You just keep saying it in slightly different ways.
They try.
They try.
No, I remember. Did you ever feel like? Because the other part was the confession about sin.
Okay.
You know, as a kid, like you're supposed to feel guilty because you're sinning. Like she uses that lion
that
object
was,
lesson.
Sin's like cute and fluffy at first. And
when you're a kid. And it starts when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like cursing is wrong. Why is cursing wrong? Exactly.
Doesn't invite the spirit.
Yeah.
Spirit doesn't like
exactly.
Spirit
so you just
like
have to scare them that this is going to be
Yeah. No, it's 100%.
Satan's going to take your soul to hell because you cursed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. any sin is as bad as any other.
Yeah. Drinking coffee.
I couldn't imagine. Never. I didn't have coffee today. No.
No.
Never.
That's not first thing in the morning. It's funny and silly when you think about adults doing it, but it's when you think about kids and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The hell part. The hell. Every kid in church was aware of hell.
Oh yeah.
Was aware of.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a thing that kids would go to their parents being like, how do I know I'm saved? I don't know if I'm saved. What if I go to hell?
Yeah.
What if I accidentally go to hell?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
I'm just about every kid asks their parent that.
Yeah.
How do you feel good about having taught your kid that? How do you feel good about that? About sending them to a church that teaches them that?
I mean, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, I don't know. I want to know. Because if I were a parent and my kid said, I don't know if I'm going to hell, I'd be like, we're not going to worry about that at all.
Right.
That is not weird.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
We're never going back there. Like, you're never, absolutely not. My child would never be worried about if they're going to go to hell if they die.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think ultimately it's going back to like the rewarding of emotional reactions that we're kind of talking about. I think there is especially if you spend your entire life in these religions, I could see how you build up, what you'd have to build up is a belief that you are saving your children.
Yeah,
right? You'd have to have.
I have to scare them so that they will
hell.
come to heaven. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That by allowing them to feel that it's the ultimate good for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it is because
it's a means to an end.
Yeah. Because like in Mormonism, I know we talked about like there isn't as much overt focus or fear mongering around an idea of hell. Like there is a discussion about outer darkness and everything, but it's more the with the tiers of heaven. You can like in the
fear
top,
of not getting to the top tier,
and the rest of your family being there, right? Because that's the only place that you'd be able to be with your family. So it is a little more like.
I mean, that's still
softer,
just as
but it's
bad.
still but it's the same.
Just as bad.
Like this fear of like, oh,
I'm not going to be with my family to scare a kid.
Oh no,
into not being.
It's so sad
with their family.
Yeah. And I know adults. Like I know people. I've talked to people who want to or are thinking about leaving Mormonism, right? It's not working for them. It's not connecting, but they have an ingrained fear of hell. That if they do this, and that's what you're accepting.
I still see it in, I mean, I think everybody, especially when you come out of it, you have to beat it.
You have a moment.
That's why I'm very like, I am going to hell.
Yes.
I am not afraid of going to hell. I will. I know it's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to do, isn't it? Because you're just like, that's like, or like, I worship the devil. Like, Satan, let's go on the highway to hell. Because the Christians, it's that taking back this fear, this panic that you're supposed to have around Satan and around the devil.
Yeah.
The ultimate evil in the world. You're supposed to be afraid when you hear the devil.
Right.
And I ain't afraid no more. I done shook hands with the devil. Sold him my soul so I can get rootin' and tootin' on that guitar. Shirley. I'm a picking and a grinning now. You.
Picking and a grinning. Amen.
Been chicken picking all my day. Don't.
This is what the devil will do to you.
That's what the devil will do to you, kids. Don't worship the devil unless you want to be cool like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Child indoctrination. Is there anything else you want to say about this absolute evil?
Anything else I want to say? I guess the George Bush scene, just to maybe wrap up the political arm of it, when they pulled out the George Bush
cutout of George Bush. And that woman tells the kids to be like, "Hello, Mr. President. Now pray for the president. Pray for Mr. President."
Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, the end of the documentary, we have like that radio host that he's, kind of talking through the religious right. It's like this political movement, evangelicals being 25% of the nation.
Yep.
That pastor, Ted Haggard, talks about like if the evangelicals vote, they win, all that stuff.
Yeah, they sway every election.
But she, at the end of that interview, is like, no, like this is not a political movement. Like, it's not political. We're not talking about politics. And it's like, girl. You had George Bush's cutout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Complete delusion.
Right.
On her
and
part.
It's this idea. One last thing maybe to say. And this is not, it is like the child doctrination. It goes back to like that child army like comparison. And instead of the reaction being that's so like despicable, we need to not do that. The reaction being we need to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's just really, and I think this just feed into like the side of our podcast of talking about like what do we do about this on like an individual level as well as like a societal level, like what are the solutions. But the idea that the Christian right and like these fundamentalist cults are coalescing into an army against a made up like enemy, right? From like the Islamic child and just the fact that like the left, right, the political left, everything else is not coalesced into a giant army against Christians. It's just not happening because it doesn't exist. Like we don't agree with them. We don't think it's right, but we're just trying to live our lives and we want to do that.
Right.
And they're coalescing into an army against them. That's why they're becoming so effective. Right. Because they've been able to do their thing. We have a 6-3 conservative supermajority in.
And we're seeing the results of it.
They've done it.
I don't know. I hope that the general populace just completely rejects it.
We have
from
to,
here on, because I've had certain people even in the last. It's only been like a month or two since Trump got into the presidency again. Yeah, and I've already had multiple people who like, well, I don't think anybody thought it was going to be this crazy. And didn't even think it was going to be this bad. I'm like, yeah, well, it's out there.
Learn the lessons.
Watch Jesus Camp.
Let's learn the lessons.
Yes, watch Jesus Camp. Watch your churches. Watch what the pastors are saying. Watch how they're indoctrinating children. It's real, and we're all going to have to live in that hell until we realize, oh shit, something's going on.
If you're conservative, if you're liberal, conservatives should be just as shocked
and appalled at it. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I can't tell anyone how to be. No. I think it's just appalling to me that the Christian church has gotten so militant. I'm like, y'all.
Oh my guys, this is not your message.
Well, it's definitely not attracting anyone to it, except for it is attracting, I guess, militant people.
Yeah.
But how many of those are there that want violence, that want war, that want hatred? I can't imagine that it's a lot, but they are effective when they're together, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, children deserve better.
Children deserve better. I think that's the other thing. We that's what we're about here.
Children deserve better.
There's better.
They deserve better.
There is better. I could have been. I'll just use my experience.
Yeah.
I could have been so good at so many things. So good at so many. I could have had so many skills in this world if I were not spending so much time devoting my fucking life to a ghost that did not exist. If I was not sitting there in my room, whatever to Jesus through my teen years, I could have been, there's so much I could have been doing with my life that could have been good and effective and helping other people and actually doing something in this world. And instead I had to, when I got out and it was all false, I had to go and start my life over, start skills over, learn skills from the bottom up to get to where I am today. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I know where I could have been. It makes me angry. I can't blame anybody. You know, I don't blame anyone else for my life. But also, I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes me angry.
For sure. Yeah. And all
there's better. There's better. We need better.
Yes.
We need better for kids and for people to grow up in. They deserve better chances in life.
And I know that we've talked through and about, one draw to religion being the like reassurance it provides around death, another being a community, and then another being, this fear of how am I going to raise my children without like a structured moral like ladder. So I think maybe I know I have.
But we're tearing every single one of those down.
We need to, and I've been given
the morality. They have no morality. Mm-hmm. We've already talked about that. Death. They don't have any stance on that except to just try and steal from you the coping with death.
Yeah.
2.
But
training a child to be an effective person in this world. Wrong. Mm-hmm. Got that one out of the way. So that's 3 L's. Christianity. 3 L's. That's 3 L's.
Yeah. But I was gonna say I had somebody send me like a secular kind of moral program.
Yeah.
To replace like a Christian idea of like Mormonism. We've talked about like family home evening and like the use of Bible stories to teach like basic like values and like moral decision or ethical decision making maybe. Yeah. So that's something I'll look into a little bit more and get more comfortable with. Maybe we can link here as a starting point for if you are, in that boat where you were raised in a religion and were indoctrinated and told that is the not only the best but the only way to raise children in an effective and supportive way. That is not the case, and we'll link to that as a potential option.
Yes.
Something to explore.
Yes.
Because there are secular options, there are secular supports, there are
won't
secular
damage
programs
your children's brain.
That don't require a off-putting of your worth, that don't require belief in a magical sense of the world, that requires so much like internal turmoil. So we'll link to that. We'll keep talking through it, and that ultimately, hopefully, can be a help to somebody. Because I empathize with the people who find themselves in that space, who were raised, getting it indoctrinated in them that this is the only way to live,
and it's the only way to raise your children,
and feel that they cannot make other decisions. Yeah. So we'll link to that.
And go watch Jesus Camp.
Yeah, watch Jesus Camp because it will open your eyes. I think
it's real. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes.
To the real front soldiers of what is happening in our country. Yeah. And just how
insane it is.
Yes. It is not the Christianity that it's not your, I don't even know how to say it. It's not the Christianity that is.
Yeah, it's not sweet little grandma's Christianity.
Yeah, it is a militant, focused army.
But it is to me the natural development of where Christianity goes.
Right. It's not. They're doing what it's all saying.
What it's saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And that's what people need to realize.
That's true.
The problem is with Christianity.
Yeah, I get that.
It is a totalitarian, authoritarian, dictator in heaven, the all-father who never leaves, who punishes and judges and sees everything that you're doing and sees you when you're sleeping, watches you when you're awake. And, like I've said, if you do one thing wrong, condemns you and all of these things, but loves you.
Yeah.
But loves you. The dear leader loves you.
Yeah.
And you get to spend eternity with this God and never escape. It is totalitarian, authoritarian.
Yeah.
Theocracy. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the natural. And I think people need to
That's
realize it's not
very
banal.
important. Yeah.
It's not
neutral.
It's not neutral.
It's not neutral.
Christianity's not neutral.
Yeah,
It
I
is
think that's a good
very,
point.
very violent.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll talk to in the future. I know recently also on Hulu, shout out, sponsor.
Yeah.
The Ruby Frankie story we kind of touched on, which is another...
Because Mormon
is another... I know it's a fringe and it's not representative of the whole, but it is an important part of that story is that this is not completely disconnected from the doctrines.
Right.
And that...
Of Mormonism.
Right? It is a perversion of them, but not in the way that... But in like what you're saying. It is
It's a natural progression.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's a natural progression.
which is
I'm just
another
going to
thing we
take
can
what it
talk
says
about.
and I'm going to believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are possessed by demons.
Right. Yeah. People like children are
like you
not
said,
whole,
like you
not
said,
holy.
there's a thing about like if you murder them, it releases the demons from them or cures them.
That
of their
is in
sins.
Mormon history.
That's in Mormon history.
Blood atonement. They now denounce and deny.
Oh well, they denounce it now.
They denounce polygamy. They denounce all these things. But
it was
it's
there.
almost like it's not true.
Almost like it's not true.
I haven't.
Wait, I'm almost there. I can almost feel. I almost make a point. I can almost get it. Oh, it left me. It left me. I don't know.
All right. Well, we've tried to end this like 5 times.
Satanic
so let's
panic
do it.
then next time. Yeah. Or
no, next time. We're going to church tomorrow.
We're going to church tomorrow.
We're going to church tomorrow.
Okay.
And then we're going to church again next week.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking we have a retrospective episode about that.
All
so
right.
that's, and then Satanic Panic will come. I think we need to do some
come
research.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
All right.
He's here. Okay.
Until next time, take us out, George.
This has been I Lost My Faith. And all I got was this podcast.
Podcast. All right. We'll see you next time. Nice.
Good work.